Good evening, everybody. Who of you is married here? Okay, good. Yeah, not that I'm running a dating show. Just wondering, do you have a wedding ring? And is it from gold? Has anybody a wedding ring with gold in it? Yes, good. And do you know where the gold is from? Well, do you know if it's recycled or whether it's from a... Well, don't worry actually, because 75% of all the goldsmiths and the jewelers in the Netherlands actually don't know whether or not their gold is recycled or coming from Africa or from Asia. They don't know. And I think that's a problem. And my speech tonight is actually a call to action, because I think everybody should know where gold is coming from. And also because we use it without knowing every day. For instance, in your smartphone or in your tablet, there is gold. So I think we should know where it could come from. And has anybody of you ever been in a gold mine? No, I thought that I would know the answer. Luckily, I had the privilege to visit quite a lot of gold mines. And while some were very well organized, many of them were actually not. And what I saw there was really not shiny. And that's why the title of my presentation tonight is Let's Make Sure Gold Shines Again. I think I might know actually where this gold could come from. Let me share you the story of Pacifique. Pacifique is a boy. He's living in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo. And I took this picture 7 years ago. 7 years ago, I took this picture. He looks happy because he just found a little bit of gold. And in the long run, I think, however, that he might not have a very fulfilling and shiny life. Why? Because he has been using a lot of mercury, actually, to extract this gold from the rock that, where the gold was hiding. And I saw this when I was a diplomat working for the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Congo. And when I went back to the embassy to write a report on it, I was doing some research and I found out that this child labor, which I saw in the mines, is not only happening in Congo, it was also happening in other parts of Africa, even in Latin America, and in Asia. And it's not only child labor, there's mercury being used, there is a lot of conflicts around the mine, a lot of fighting around those gold mines. So I wrote this all in a report and I said, we have to come to a solution. We as the Dutch, we have always been innovative. Let's come up with a certificate for gold. And I said this certificate should have, would mean that there would be no child labor involved in the gold, there would be no mercury, no deforestation, no conflict, and a fair wage for the miners. And I wrote it and I put it on the desk of the ambassador, and I was very happy, very satisfied. I was like, okay, this is really a good piece of work I wrote. And then I received a call from the ambassador. She said, Dirk, what happened? I mean, I know that you were touched by those mines, but hey, we're here to report and to analyze and not to be an activist. If you want to be an activist, maybe you should go and work for an NGO. So I said, yeah, maybe I should do that then, because I really thought that something needed to be done about this gold trade. So I moved to work for an NGO, and I focused a lot on responsible gold and especially on the conflicts in and around those mines. And I started to write opinion articles in the Dutch newspapers on gold, and I even started to write a book on all the issues, all the problems I had seen in the mines, and trying to make a case for responsible gold. And I was pretty critical in the book actually about the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and their inaction about doing something about this gold trade. And I was quite surprised that apparently the Minister of Foreign Aid and Trade had had read my book, and she actually agreed with my analysis that more needed to be done and asked me to become her special envoy for natural resources. And wow, I said, of course, well, I have to think about it. But I knew that I wanted as well to change the system from within, which is the theme of tonight. So I said, okay, let's take up this challenge. And I accepted this interesting position. And there was a small team of diplomats and of ready to work on this issue of responsible gold. We had the political backing of the minister, and we had this great idea of setting up a more responsible gold trade. But there was one problem lacking, and that was that the industry was not that interested in us taking up this challenge. And I said, how can we convince the industry, the gold industry, to really work together with us on this? So I said, if they see it maybe firsthand, then they might join us in our struggle. So we organized a big trip to Kenya, and there were jewelers coming, there was the press coming along, and we visited some gold mines. Some ones were well organized, others were a total mess. And I think when we reached this point where we saw Mary with her hands in the mercury, that's when one of the jewelers really made the switch in her mind. And she said, oh, I really don't want this gold to end up in my jewelry store. Right after we visited the gold mine, she made a public statement. She was working for Hassan Diamonds, and she said, from now on, we'll only buy certified gold, responsible gold, because then I at least know that the mercury is being used and handled in a responsible way. So maybe you say, okay, well, that's just one jeweler. I mean, there's so many jewelers in the Netherlands, but I think it's important what you see that before that announcement of this jeweler, only 1/4 of a kilo of the gold entering the Netherlands was certified gold. But after that statement, it will reach 6 kilos, which is a huge increase. At the same time, if you realize that we import more than 2,400 kilos in the Netherlands, there's still a long way to go. If you look at the shops where you could potentially buy certified gold, there you see that it used to be 12 when we started with the team, and now we are at 49, but we think that really it should increase much more, because if you look at the total number of jewelers and goldsmiths in the Netherlands, it's more than 1,000, and less than 50 actually offer you the opportunity to buy a responsible gold. So we think that still a lot of work needs to be done. We have this dream. We think that 100% of jewelers and goldsmiths should offer this as an opportunity. And luckily, there has been a lot of activism of late of NGOs to try to go beyond the 5%. One organization I could mention is Solidaridad, and they did a very interesting campaign at the Museum Square in Amsterdam, where they worked together with the golden medalists of the Netherlands who won gold in one of the Olympics. And all those golden medalists said, from now on, we would like to be sure that the gold that we get when we win a medal is really responsible gold. So we saw some movement, and I also felt myself actually that I needed to do something, because I bought this ring when I was getting married. I really never paid attention to where this gold came from. I did not know about the stories like Pacifique and Mary. And you know what? You know how long it takes for a boy like Pacifique to find enough gold for such a ring? How long does it take? 6 weeks. He is digging for 6 weeks in the mud, under the ground, just to find 6 grams of gold. I just said, oh, this is really not possible. I don't want to be associated to this. So I bought a nice ring for the wedding anniversary here in Utrecht, because Utrecht is one of the front runners when it comes to responsible gold. And you can see how beautiful it can be gold. So I'm also very glad to announce that Utrecht will hold the first all-fair trade jewelry exhibition in Hortus just next month. So please attend, and especially the man, buy something nice for your girlfriend. I know Dutch men are always stingy, but really, fair trade or a responsible gold is only 10% more expensive, so even a Dutch man should be willing to pay for that. And it's just beautiful, right? So we were having this small team. I was having this fancy title. I was calling the industry, come and discuss with us around the table how we can make sure that the gold sector becomes more responsible. And in the beginning, they were pretty reluctant, actually, the industry, because if they would sit around the table, they would kind of acknowledge that there are problems, right? So we were thinking, how can we convince them to join us? And we said, okay, we have to show them the risks, but also the opportunities. And show them where we are now, but also our ideals, where we would like to reach to. And for instance, we shared them the story of the Okapi Reserve in Central Africa. It's the only place in the world where you can find okapis. But it's the same reserve, there is over 15,000 gold diggers digging gold. And this gold, it has been tracked and traced. It goes to Dubai, where it's melted, and it could end up in your laptop or in your device. So really, it could end up sitting with us here tonight. So we showed them the risks, but at the same time, we showed them the opportunities. For instance, there is this organization in Amsterdam called the Fairphone, which can ensure that all the metals and minerals in the phone are responsibly sourced. And many people said to them, this is totally impossible what you're trying to achieve. You can never track and trace all those metals. But even for gold, they know now exactly from which mines the gold is coming from. And they know there's no child labor. They know that people have been fairly paid. They know that there's no conflict, no irresponsible use of mercury. So they proved all the cynics wrong. They showed that you can change the system. By now they have sold more than 60,000 phones, and it's going to skyrocket this year. That's for sure. So finally, we succeeded in getting everybody around the table with these positive examples and the risks clearly identified. And we tried to come up with a common aim of the group, consisting of industry, of researchers, of investors, of activists. And everybody said, okay, we should at least try to find out where the gold is coming from. But of course, we are more ambitious. We don't only want to know where the gold is coming from, but we want to ensure that there's no dirty gold entering the Netherlands. And at the same time, we would like to make sure that more and more responsible gold enters the Netherlands. So, at this time, unfortunately, there's no clear target yet, no clear deadline yet. We haven't finished the discussions with the sector yet. And I say yet deliberately, because I'm counting on you. I'm counting on you when you go and buy, for instance, a new laptop or a new device, and that you ask, do you actually know where those metals and minerals are from? Why don't you? I think you can ask to your supplier. And if you would buy maybe an engagement ring or a wedding ring, what would you ask the jeweler after having heard the speech? What would you ask? Indeed, where does the gold come from? And maybe he says, maybe he or she has the answer. Maybe he says, oh, I know where my gold is coming from. It's coming from a recycled mine. In the Netherlands, we have the largest gold mine is in Eindhoven. You might not know, I was also surprised to find out, but 500 kilos of gold is mined there annually. So maybe he has done his checks and maybe he knows where the gold is coming from, but most likely he doesn't know. And then I think you can ask him, well, or explain him that maybe it could come from the Central African Republic, where there's a lot of fighting around the gold mines, or maybe it's coming from the Sudan region, where a lot of the dirty mercury is getting into the Nile, or maybe it's coming from Ghana, where there's really a huge problem in terms of child labor. And here you see the boy sniffing the sniffing the mercury when it's most poisonous and when it's really directly affecting the IQ and the life expectancy. So I think if we start asking those questions to the jeweler or to the mobile device provider, we can start to create change together. They always say that the consumer is king, so if we ask for it, I think they will have to deliver responsibly sourced minerals and responsibly sourced gold. Well, how can you recognize online or in the shop whether or not the gold is actually responsibly mined? Well, you can look at the Fair Trade or the Fair Mined logo, and if you see this, then you know that there's no child labor, only responsible use of mercury, a fair price is being paid, there's no deforestation, and there's no conflict. So I think if we all work together, we can make sure that the future of Mary or of Pacifique starts to shine again. Thank you.